welcome to everyone to this presentation that has been planned specifically for the Mount Airy bid. It is being recorded, so I want to let you know that up front. And the benefit of that is that Janice can then take that information and share it with additional individuals who may have registered but may have had some challenges of getting here today. So as a Mount Airy bid member, I'm really glad to be able to share this information with all of you about, getting specific information on PPP, EIDL, Save Our Stages, the COVID Hospitality Industry Recovery Program, and the PA 30-day fund. And what I'm going to do right now, first I'm just going to introduce myself. PM Rich Wheeler. I'm the Executive Director of the Business Center, and our mission is to equip businesses with the tools that they need to start, sustain, and expand their operations. So this workshop today, of course, is allowing you to sustain your operations in this time of COVID. And we're hoping that you take away something that you can apply within a 24-hour period. So at this time, I'm also going to introduce our panelists for today. First speaker will be Solomon Wheeler. And if the last name sounds familiar, that's because he is my hubby as well. And he is a branch manager from the SBA, and he's going to share detailed information on the PPP, the EIDL loan, and the Save Our Stages. And then we have Michael Shore. He's the Deputy Director for DCED, and he's going to share some brief highlights on the COVID Hospitality Industry Recovery Program, which I believe opens today. And he's going to be brief, and that's specifically because every single Wednesday from here on out, PIDC will have a webinar from 10 to 11 a.m. And again, that's every Wednesday, that will give you all the details that you need. And because they will actually be the administrators in Philadelphia for that. And then we'll wrap up with Ron Williford, who is the tax consultant for the Business Center, as well as he's a small business owner with Philadelphia Financial Consultants. And of course, he's busy right now with taxes. So if we have time and you have some tax questions, we could even tackle those as well, because things have changed this year with filing your taxes, right? With all these opportunities of COVID funds, you got to make sure that you tackle your taxes properly. But also, Ron is available on our team after you receive this information if you just need assistance filling out all the forms that are discussed today. And that is a free service that the Business Center provides. You just can call our office at 215-247-2473 and make your appointment. Or you can email us at education@thebizcenter.com. And I see Janice taking notes, so she can follow up and share that with everybody. I appreciate that so much, Janice. And then we'll wrap up with Q&A. So without further ado, I want to mention there's some things going into chat, some links going into the chat. So check that periodically. We'll be checking that periodically as well during the presentation. So I'm going to ask Solomon to start and take it away.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Solomon Wheeler, and I'm the Harrisburg branch manager for the SBA. I'll jump right into it. Certainly, there's a lot of information here, and I would say it's very difficult to try to absorb all of it. I would say that, all of this information exists on the SBA's website, which is just sba.gov, and across the top, there's a bright yellow banner that looks at all the COVID programs. So you can drill down. Again, it's just sba.gov, but the full name of this is the Economic Aid Act. And so I will not go through every slide, but certainly I want to try to at least create some awareness and give the information that's most important. We'll certainly try to cover all the SBA COVID-19 economic aid funding options, loan program details, grant program in terms of SVOG and the EIDL advance. And then there's some additional resources that are available that you should be aware of. The point of this slide is really just to look at SBA has really been the primary agency in terms of relief to America's small businesses. So it's as part of the SBA's mission, their mission is actually to help Americans start and grow businesses. So the idea is that, SBA has been empowered via Treasury and ultimately through Congress to execute these programs. So this is just kind of a simple graphic of the overview of the programs that the SBA is currently managing in terms of COVID relief or economic aid funding options. Paycheck Protection Program, you see that on the left. There's a debt relief program for those businesses that actually have SBA debt already. Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program and Targeted EIDL Advance Program. And then the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. So the whole point of this slide is to emphasize which one's actually a loan and what programs are grant programs. In other words, you don't have to pay that money back if it's categorized as a grant. So, these are the headlines from the Paycheck Protection Program. Some of you may have already heard this before, but, one of the things that the new funding Act did was certainly expand PPP eligibility, how those funds are used. There's a concept called the covered period that was actually relaxed. Now the borrower can pick anywhere between 8 and 24 weeks. There's a second draw option that is really for those small businesses that have been hit hardest. This fourth bullet point is really important. This is Congress reacting to feedback, very strong feedback. There is no negative tax consequence of taking a PPP loan. There's a forgiveness portion that doesn't count as income, and you can actually still deduct the expenses. So it really is a no-lose situation. There's some more updated information on simplified applications if it's 150,000 or less, and then there's no subtraction on the EIDL advance. And I'll talk a little bit about that. But basically, if you got an advance or grant through the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, last year, probably around the April-May timeframe, the congressional rules called for deducting that from your PPP forgiveness. They have since repealed that, which was the smart thing to do. So people were not left with an unintentional loan. And we can talk a little bit more about that. All right, so what is a first draw PPP loan for eligible applicants that did not receive a PPP loan prior to August 9th? So the PPP loan eligibility now includes additional types of entities like destination organizations, tour companies, etc. Covered eligible expenses are expanded. Borrowers, as I mentioned before, borrowers can actually select a covered period between 8 and 24 weeks. Certain borrowers may request an increase in the original PPP amount, and they must have been in business by February 15th. There's nothing new about that. But with this second draw, they are currently working on a deadline of March 31st, 2021. There's been lots of chatter around, extending that. We'll see what happens. But right now, if a small business wants a second PPP loan, they've got to get their application in by March 31st. Just a review of some of the first draw PPP loan eligibility. So you have to be a small business, and there's size standards and criteria that's built into the program that certainly a small business has to meet. The newly eligible entities are what I mentioned before, things like housing cooperatives, destination marketing organizations, certain 501c3 organizations such as chambers of commerce. That was, again, a lot of feedback from people. Hey, why aren't chambers of commerce eligible? Well, now, in fact, they are. And then there are certain media company or news organizations that are eligible. Still eligible, in other words, no change, right? All this normal business entities that we think of, sole props, independent contractors, business entities, 501c3, C19, which are veterans organizations, and tribal businesses. So that's not new information. That's just those organizations are still eligible. All right. So what is a second draw? And this is again new as of in 2021. So for borrowers that previously received a PPP loan, they must have 300 employees or less and suffered a 25% reduction in gross receipts. They're potentially eligible for another draw on the out of the Paycheck Protection Program. So for most borrowers, the maximum amount of that second draw is 2.5 times the average monthly, either 2019 or 2020. You have an option on that, as long as those are payroll costs, and that's up to $2 million. Keep in mind, the first draw was up to $10 million, but they've lowered that amount. There's a special option that was put in for accommodation and food services. We know that businesses in this sector were really hit hard, so it's next code 72. Essentially, they get 3.5 times average monthly 2019 or 2020 payroll costs. So they have the option to get a bigger loan. And then, there are applications that SBA put out. The official form is a 2483, but keep in mind that all the hundreds and hundreds of banks that are participating in this program, many of them have taken SBA's applications and adapted them to their own online portal. So most banks that are actually doing these loans, they have their own application process. Same information, but they typically will have a portal available. All right, so for second draw PPP loan eligibility, you must have previously received a first draw loan, and the covered periods cannot overlap. Some of the other additional criteria is that you will have used or will use the first full draw. So in other words, you have to have exhausted that first draw loan in order to be eligible, or that you will exhaust in a specific period of time that first draw loan. There you can then actually apply for second draw. You have to have no more than 300 employees, and you have to be able to demonstrate that your business has experienced a 25% reduction in gross receipts. So the simplest example is Joe's Bakery did $10,000 in the second quarter of 2019. Fast forward to the second quarter of 2020, he now is doing $7,500, right? So there's been a reduction, a 25% reduction from $10,000 to $7,500. Therefore, he would potentially qualify for the SBA second draw PPP loan. Hopefully that's clear. This is, again, just a visual of the application process. From steps 1, 2, and 3, finding a PPP lender. There are portals that are available. The one that the SBA typically refers to is the lender match. You can go in, put a few keywords for your name, address, etc., and it'll identify the PPP lender that's closest to you. There is an application that must be completed along with supporting documentation. The SBA has delegated this program to all these lenders. So essentially the SBA says, okay, bank, you have to just kind of approve that the information looks reasonable. You send the file to us electronically. The SBA looks at it, and as long as there's no real red flags, they put an authorization number on it, a loan number, and give the bank the authorization to go ahead and fund it. So the SBA is kind of acting as an insurance. They're standing behind it and simply guaranteeing at 100% to the bank that should the loan go bad, should there be a problem with it, they're going to make the bank whole. So the big news here is in the green text down below. March 31st, or when the appropriated funds are exhausted, that's when the program ends. And right now, that's the date we're all operating under. That could change, but at this point, that's the date we're working on. All right, just some more information about, and this is not new information, just to remember that if you take a PPP loan and a portion of it's not forgiven, the rest of it's at 1% fixed, non-compounding, non-adjustable. It's simple interest. There's no requirement for collateral or personal guarantees, no fees or prepayment penalties. It's a 5-year maturity. Payments actually start once the borrower knows how much the PPP loan will be forgiven. So there's no rush, or they're going to give them 10 months. So there's ample opportunity to kind of figure out what your payments are going to look like. And, what we're seeing many businesses actually achieving 100% forgiveness, which is obviously that makes the most sense. That's the goal in all of this. More information about loan forgiveness. The idea is that once you actually apply, you exhaust, you can then apply for forgiveness. And there's a process around that. And again, down here, per the CARES Act, forgiven PP loans are not federally taxable income. Okay, I think I'm not going to say anything more about that. So here's the EIDL. And I know that we might have a question on this. And why don't we go ahead, let me just pause right there. Are there any questions on information that I just covered? I know it's a lot of information, so why don't you, are there any questions on what we just talked about with PPP? So what's the EIDL question that you had?
For me? Okay. So
Yeah.
my question was, we got an EIDL loan for, I think, $34,000, and we're a very small nonprofit. And I don't understand exactly like what part is able to be forgiven. How do we apply for that? I'm just not sure what happens next.
Okay, so I'm just going to give the short answer is you would have received an EIDL targeted advance and it's marked as that in your bank account. Those are the portion of an EIDL loan that is completely forgiven. In other words, it acts like a grant. And so you would need to understand whether or not you got that targeted EIDL advance. If you're not sure,
No,
I would say, okay, you did get it. So the grant
earlier, and then we got the actual loan later.
Okay, so to be clear, then the advance is forgivable. That is something you do not have to pay back. The EIDL loan is in fact a loan. It is not forgivable. It is typically going to be termed out over 30 years. It's a fixed interest rate. You can see here, based on the terms on the slide, 3.75 fixed for for-profit businesses, 2.75 for nonprofit. Your first 12 months are deferred. So you certainly should be getting a statement that says as much. And if you have confusion about it, if you want to discuss it in more detail, certainly you're welcome to send me an email and we can, schedule time to take a look at it. We can see what the Office of Disaster Assistance has to say. There should be an email with customer support on any statement that you receive from the SBA. So there's two distinct pieces here, right? The targeted, the advance grant, which does not have to be paid back, and then the EIDL loan. There is not a forgiveness portion to the EIDL loan. It must be paid back.
And we don't have to do anything in regard to that initial grant, the advance.
There are no requirements. The SBA reserves the right to inspect records, but it's highly unlikely. I would say the important point about the grant and all of these loans is that they're supposed to be used for working capital. Now, like I said, in all the applications that you sign, the SBA always reserves the right to inspect records because they're trying to protect taxpayer dollars against fraud, waste, and abuse. But, it's highly unlikely that they're going to do that on an advance or even the EIDL loans because of the sheer volume we're dealing with. They're only really auditing loans that are $2 million and above.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, great. So, like I said, there's additional information in the slides. There's additional information on the SBA website. What I'll do is I'm not going to cover any more on EIDL. EIDL is open right now. It'll be open until the end of the year, December 31st, or until the money runs out. And again, it's a working capital loan. The Target EIDL Advance is really just a program to try to make those businesses that did not receive the full $10,000 to try to make them whole. So they're actually plussing up or increasing the advance for those businesses that are in low income communities and are still suffering at least a 30% decline. So that's their initial thrust with this program. They're going to, go back and try to make those advance targeted, or I should say advance grant recipients. They're going to try to make them whole if they didn't get a full 10,000. That's really all this slide is saying. We're going to try to give you the full 10 if you didn't get it, but you've got to be in a low income community and you have to have still suffering a 30% decline in gross receipts. And that's more information about the targeted idle. If there's any more money left over, my understanding is that they may revisit other small businesses that didn't get that idle advance, but we don't know at this point. More information about idle advance, and I just wanted to just briefly touch on the Shuttered Venues Operators Grant. I think the headline from all of this is that, it's long overdue. This is money that's going directly to, individual businesses that have been impacted by COVID that are in performing arts, live theater, etc. This is a grant, so it's and you guys are, familiar with grant writing. There is an eligibility process. There's tremendous flexibility in how you use those grants once you, get through all the other eligibility criteria. But I would say that they're not taking applications yet, but that should happen really at any moment now. There are facts that are available on the website that answer specific questions about whether or not I qualify. If I'm a restaurant and I have live acts on weekend, do I qualify? Usually no. If I'm a museum that has fixed seating in an amphitheater in which I have performances, potentially yes. So there's a lot of nuance in it, and I would encourage everyone to just simply read the FAQs, go to the website. There's additional applications checklist that's available. So I'm going to stop right there because I know it's just too much information. Okay. So anyway, if anyone has any questions or follow up, please just send me an email, or you can send it to Pam and she can get it to me. Solomon.wheeler@sba.gov.
Next, we're going to have Michael Shore. He is the Deputy Director of DCED, and he's going to talk briefly about the hospitality grant that just opened today. And it's the COVID Hospitality Industry Recovery Program. And again, he's going to talk briefly about it. More detailed information will be provided by PIDC in Wednesday seminars from 10 a.m. to 11. And he supplied the link to Janice, so Janice can share that with you all as well. Michael?
Yeah, thanks, Pam. So this program, we're calling it CHIRP, as Pam said, it's the COVID Hospitality Industry Recovery Program. So the governor and DCED were able to allocate $145 million to this program. So there's going to be $17 million directly for Philadelphia. And as Pam noted, it's PIDC, the Philadelphia Industrial Development Corporation, that's going to be administering the program in the Philadelphia region. I think Pam noted that their folks are able to assist with applications. There's also an Excel spreadsheet on PIDC's website. I can provide that link in the chat as well, that has different partners for different areas of the city, depending on where you're at, that may be able to help directly with your application. So these funds are specifically for, as Solomon mentioned, that NICS code, the North American Industrial Classification System. So this program is specifically for those businesses in the accommodation sector, as well as food and hospitality. So those are the 721 and the 722 NICS codes. Just putting that link to the spreadsheet here, so everybody can take a look at that for some of those resources. So this will be awards of $5,000 to $50,000. And as Pam noted, it is open today, and it'll close on April 5th, which is a Monday, at 11:59 that night. So anyone within those industry sectors, I really would encourage you to apply. As we said, this is a grant. So, while the loans are super helpful right now as well, I know everybody is really looking for the grant funding. And again, that $5,000 to $50,000 we think can be pretty helpful. So similar to Solomon's, there's an FAQ also on PIDC's website. So DCD is somewhat hands off from this point. So letting our partner organizations administer the program, but I'm happy to answer any questions now if anybody has any about that.
Does anyone have any questions?
Does anybody know if they're planning on applying?
I know there's a couple of hospitality organizations that are applying that are not on this call. Actually, I'm meeting with one tomorrow, Michael.
Okay.
So, and I met with one before this call that they will be looking into it.
Okay. And yeah, my best advice is really just to check that NICS code to make sure you're eligible. There are some groups that unfortunately aren't going to be eligible if their primary activity, like beer breweries, distilleries, certain like retail bakeries. So certain groups aren't eligible. But if you think, or if your primary, business doesn't align with what you see on your NICS code, as long as you're able to provide some documentation that shows that you are doing a majority of your operation within those sectors, that'd be allowable. So
that would include travel agencies?
No, so I think travel agencies may just be within the 7.2 NICS code. It needs to specifically be within the 7.2.1 or the 7.2.2 NICS code.
Okay.
Like I believe that those may be in just the 7.2 area. So you do really want to make sure that you're within one of those two, 7.2.1 or 7.2.2.
Okay.
But Pam, just to mention that, they potentially could be eligible for PPP loans. So, they could certainly examine that. I never discourage, unless we really have clear guidance or restrictions on companies, but they should take a look at potentially looking at a Paycheck Protection Program loan.
Definitely.
We just added the destination marketing organization, so you never know.
And you certainly are eligible for both of those at the same time. The only special notes I would make is if you're just say like a food truck, someone who is registered in another county, but all of your operations take place in Philadelphia, you're eligible for the Philadelphia funds, but they will make sure that you're not double dipping. So that would be the only situation where you couldn't put two applications together, would be to two separate counties for this same program. But as Solomon noted, I would really encourage folks that are looking at this to also be looking at the PPP.
But if you're a food truck and say you want to apply for PPP, you could also apply for CHIRP.
Correct.
Or are you saying, yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah, and we would encourage that.
Okay. Yes, because we do have some food trucks, and of course they're at their trucks now.
Yeah.
So they couldn't be on this call as well.
Yeah, and Pam, as you noted, and I put it in the chat there are, I think it's 3 remaining webinars coming up, hosted by PIDC to go in a little more detail. But I think based on some of the previous programs earlier in the pandemic, they've learned a lot. So that it's a pretty streamlined application. I took a look through it. It should only take 15 to 20 minutes. As long as you have your tax returns from last year and the profit loss statements together, it should be a relatively straightforward process.
Great. All right. Are there any other questions for Michael before we move on to Ron? Oh, we have a new person. So if there's no more questions for Michael, then I'm going to move on to Ron. And then after Ron, we'll open it back up to just general questions. And if there aren't any general questions, because it looks like we're going to have some extra time, I will let each presenter just summarize some key points that people should remember as they look at these for their operations. Ron?
Thanks, Pam. The PA 30-day fund, I've dropped the actual link inside the chat. It's for any business that has from 3 to 30 employees. You must operate in Pennsylvania, and the owner and operator must also live in Pennsylvania. The amount of the loan is $3,000. This is funded by a not-for-profit, and it's here for immediate release. So they're able to release funds within 3 to 5 days. As I mentioned, $3,000. One notable person that's on the list is Jeff Brown, who owns the shop rights in the area. In addition, this is open until 12/31/2023. So there's a good long amount of time to jump on this loan. And it's pretty much a one-page application. And also a part of the application process, you have to submit a video that explains why you need and why you want the funds. And that's pretty much the gist of it. If you go to the website, the FAQ is there for any additional information. One thing I noted is that $3 million have been dispersed, and the city of Philadelphia has been dispersed $1.4 million of those funds. So that's another opportunity that is available to you. And it's pretty brief, 30 days quick. Boom.
Now, Ron, what does the start date of your business have to be for?
Oh, it has. It didn't really list, but it had to be. This started in April of 2020, so I'm sure it had to be when COVID started. I mean, there was no specifics on when it needed to be started. No, you have to be in a. Excuse me. There's. You have to have been in business for at least 1 year.
1 year. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, most of these I know have some specifications around that. But one of the other things I wanted to mention about the PA 30 days specifically is that we're using the word loan, but it's a forgivable loan,
Yeah,
which is a little bit different from a standard loan. Can you explain to everyone what makes a forgivable loan a little different from a standard loan that we're used to from a bank?
Well, it's considered a loan, but it's actually a grant. You don't have to pay the loan back. The only thing they kind of like ask you to do is to pay it forward. So if you get the loan, if you're doing well as a business, they, pay it forward, contribute to the fund. So that's the only requirement, really.
Okay. Sounds good. Are there any questions about the PA 30-day loan fund?
What is the link for it? Hello, I'm Lynn. I'm late. I'm sorry.
Okay.
What was the link for that? I'm sorry, I didn't get it.
It started in April. It started on April 16th, 2020.
Okay.
And it's available until 12/31/2023.
Okay. And
you can go to pa30dayfund.com.
Okay.
Yeah, I've dropped the link it's in the chat. If you look in the chat, the website's in the chat.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not real savvy, so I apologize. pa30dayfund.com.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So at this time, what I'm going to ask each presenter to do is to share exactly what you feel is the most important items. What are the most important items that each participant in this panel discussion today should take away? So I just noticed that Solomon put something in the chat as well. There were some questions on the lenders. So the top PP lenders in Pennsylvania: Manufacturers and Traders Trust, Williamton Savings Fund Society, Meridian Bank, Wells Fargo, Berkshire Bank, Celtic Bank Corp, Live Oak Banking Company, First Trust, and TD Bank. Those are the top lenders for the PPP. And those are in the chat if you need to see them again. Again, this is being recorded, so you'll be able to see it in the recording that Janice is going to share with everyone. So Solomon, can you just share again the highlights from each program that you shared today, the most important things that you want people to remember from each?
Yeah, so again, with PPP, The program is coming to a close on March 31st. That's something to keep in mind. Again, that is for payroll. And I would certainly encourage any small business that's dealing with stress on working capital to look at the PPP program. The EIDL loan program is open until the end of the year. But again, if any small business, if you're on the fence, I would encourage you to go ahead and apply because they're going to term all the loans out over 30 years. I was talking to a gentleman the other day, and he was a barber, right? He borrowed $10,000. His payment was about $49, a month. So, and this is after a 12-month deferment. So not really a lot of stress in terms of repayment. So that's something that's worth looking at. Shuttered venues, certainly a little bit more detail, a little bit more involved. What you can spend the money on is actually broader even than EIDL in terms of working capital. But obviously for any of the performing arts venues, we believe it's going to be a really big program which will help them get open again this year. And I think that's about it. Any other follow-up questions, send an email to Pam, or you can send one directly to me at solomon.wheeler@sba.gov. Thank you. Thanks for your attention.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
You applied for the EIDL loan and you decided not to take it the first time. Can you go back in and apply again?
Yes. As long as you have not received it, you have not received an EIDL loan and you declined it the first, you can go back in and certainly reapply. That's not a problem.
I think another thing to mention about PPP, Solomon, is the fact that if you applied for it the first time, up to a certain amount was forgiven.
Okay. So you're thinking of, keep in mind when you apply for PPP, you must hit that 60% threshold, must be spent on payroll expenses, which means 40% can be spent on eligible non-payroll expenses, rent expense, lease, etc. So those numbers, those targets are critical to meet. It doesn't change between the first and second draw. And if that's what you're referring to, then that becomes an important criteria. But we're finding the idea is to get 100% forgiven. So it's up to each small business owner to properly estimate what their payroll is. And the point is try to hit it estimate so that you are actually getting 100% of the loan forgiven. And we are seeing that.
Okay, thanks. And Michael, what are some highlights you would like individuals to know about CHIRP?
Yeah, just one thing I had failed to mention was that this is not a first come, first serve application process. So anyone that's looking at CHIRP, don't stress out about the timeline. Obviously it is relatively quick turnaround. You have only about 3 weeks to get the application in. But there's no rush to get it in today versus the end of the process. They're going to start review after April 5th. So the one other thing I would mention for this funding is that there's a list of eligibility requirements, and then there's also a list of additional priorities. So you need to meet all the eligibility requirements in order to apply for the funds. But then there's a further breakdown, a few priority areas with which they're going to prioritize the sort of funding to certain businesses first. So those are historically disadvantaged businesses, those located in areas of high poverty, as well as if your business has not received any loan or grant funding prior to applying, that will be prioritized as well. So, again, if you're within one of those two NICS codes, I would strongly encourage that you put together an application, given that you're eligible. And then I would just make a note, we're still waiting at DCD as well as the governor's office for some further instruction about the next round of funding, coming from the federal government. We do expect at least to either recapitalize some of our programs that were active, last year, sort of during the peak of COVID, or some new funding streams. Don't have too many details on that yet, but that'll be coming out soon.
That's good to know. And lastly, Ron, Any highlights that you would like people to remember regarding the PA 30-day fund?
I think one of the quickest highlights is it's $3,000 is the amount between 3 to 30 employees, and its turnaround time is within 3 to 5 business days, and it's for immediate funding. If you've applied for the PPP and you're waiting on those results, it's a way to get some monies in your hand right away. I think those are the probably the most important things, and you have to live in PA and have your business in Pennsylvania.
And you had to been in business for 1 year?
1 year, exactly.
Are there any thresholds on revenue?
None whatsoever.
Okay.
You're right.
Well, that's really great. And we do still have 10 minutes. So this is still additional time that we have for people just to ask questions, or if you'd like to share what your business is with the rest of the people on this call, this is an opportunity for you to do that, or put something in the chat. The floor is yours. This is very, very unusual. We started later.
I do have a question.
Early. Go ahead, Lynn.
The latecomer. Okay, so we're fairly new in business, and so how do we get we would like to work with the city of Philadelphia, get involved with their contracts. Is there a link that I can go to?
Yes, you can go to phila.gov.
Phila.gov. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Lynn, you can also contact our office, and we have actually in our office, we have a quick fact sheet of all the grants that the city offers. Janice,
That's
just remind me, I
fantastic.
can send send the electronic version to Janice, because there's a number of facade grants, there's a number of recoverable loan programs that the city offers. But if you want to do business with the city, you want to get on their e-contract email blast too, Lynn. But you can also contact our office here at the Business Center at 215
Okay.
247
Okay.
2473.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
you can also go to our website, which is thebizctr.com. Again, that's thebizctr.com. And all the presenters that shared information today, that's also on our website. In addition to that, what was shared specifically today is going to be shared with by Janice to the Mount Airy Business Improvement District. But if you just want to know about all the COVID relief funds, you want to look at them in one spot, you can go right to our website. We update that as we receive information. And also, I want to thank John Kaler, who is another business owner in the community, and he's also on our board. He's our technical support today. He just put our website in the chat, and Solomon put his contact information in the chat as well, and it's also on our website. And feel free to visit the website for that information, or look in the chat before you get off this call. Are there any other businesses? Lynn, what type of business do you have?
We have a power washing, and also we for COVID to come in, and we could spray to make sure everything's sterile and sanitized.
Oh, okay. So is it homes or cars or?
No, it's homes and businesses.
Homes and businesses. Okay, That's good to know.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to ask a question or introduce your business? While we have time, we might as well network with each other. Anybody else like to introduce themselves? I see Natalie, I see Jeffrey.
And you folks who we're not seeing, you just unmute your microphone and say hello.
Hi, I'm Natalie Glantz. How are you today? Thank you so
Hi,
much for the
Natalie.
information. I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
And Natalie, I hope it was helpful. What type of business do you have?
We're in Mount Airy. We are Maclen's Collision Repair on Allen's Lane. And
Okay. pass by there quite often.
Yeah. So I'm just
Okay.
learning about more information, and thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Great. And Jeffrey?
Hi, how are you? Yeah, I got here a little late today. I was running from a
It's all right.
doctor's appointment, so I missed, I guess, the majority of the webinar. But I have Chestmount Realty. I've been on Germantown Avenue since 1995 in two separate locations.
Okay.
Currently, I'm at 6800 block of Germantown Avenue, and we've kind of scaled back quite a bit since COVID, and we're trying to get up and running again.
Okay. Well, are there any questions that we can answer for you, Jeffrey? Have you been able to take advantage of the PPP or the EIDL or the PA 30-day fund?
I got something from the PPP, and I am in the process of waiting on grant funds that I haven't received yet, that allegedly I've been approved for, but I haven't gotten that yet. So is that the EIDL, the grant funds? Is that the one that's the EIDL?
Yeah, the EIDL is one that is taking quite a bit of time for people to receive.
Yeah,
but what we say, as long as you haven't received a rejection, then it's coming.
Okay.
It will be coming.
All right.
So,
I would like to copy down the website, Pam, because I didn't quite get to write that down.
Sure. It's THEBIZCTR.com. And we actually have a full presentation of the PPP and the EIDL that Solomon did a couple of months ago on that website. So it'll have we have the slides there too. Okay. And then after this presentation, Janice will be sending out the link to this whole presentation, the recording, so you'll have it as well. And you'll have not only Solomon's presentation, but also Michael, what the information he shared about the COVID hospitality industry recovery program, and what Ron shared about the PA 30-day fund. Are you planning on going for the second round?
Yes.
Okay, great. So you have to the 31st. Now, this is what I wanted to say, being that today is March the 15th. And I can't believe that some of the banks are doing this, but some of the banks, their deadline is today.
Wow.
So that they can get their paperwork together and be ready for March 31st. So check with your bank, whoever you plan on applying for the second round, and make sure that their deadline is not today. But there are a couple of banks that we receive calls from, some of our clients that we serve, that they actually were informed. And two of those banks I'll mention right now, just in case anybody banks there. One is Citizens and one is Univest. Mm-hmm. So definitely check your bank and make sure that that's not all of them. But if your bank's deadline is today, you need to know that you need to go ahead and apply. Most of these applications are taking less than 5 minutes to fill out.
Yeah, I'm a Univest customer. This is John, and their deadline is definitely today. And it's a very easy fill out. If you get the SBA form and you put all your information in there, it's then transferred into their portal. So it's a straightforward process. But yeah, they're closing that at the end of today so far. Also sorry, Pam. Also to note, we'll share around all the links that are in here as in the chat. I'll share that with Janice too, so you'll have all that information.
And we do encourage, if you've done the first round of PPP, to try to do the second round with the same source, because they have all your information and it just makes the process, quicker. But if for any reason you're not able to do that, and you find yourself having to look at other sources for the first round or even the second round, Solomon put those banking institutions in the chat. And I think, Solomon, there's a website too that people can go to for a whole listing as well, correct? Okay, I think we might have lost Solomon.
Yeah, no, I'm still here. Yeah, lender match. Just Google lender match at SBA, and it'll come up, bring a website up. Lender match.
Great. Well, Janice, I want to thank you for allowing us to share this information today on COVID relief funds. It's been a pleasure. I hope that people have found something that they can take away and utilize within the next 24 hours. And I want to thank our panelists, Solomon Wheeler and Michael Shore and Ron Williford, for being here today. As always, it's a pleasure. And thank our participants that asked questions and shared information about your business. And we wish you well, and we wish that you stay safe. But certainly, again, reach out to our office. We're here to serve you, help you fill out those forms, help you understand what you qualify for. And our phone number is 215-247-2473. And our website again is thebizctr.com. Anything else, Janice?
No, I just want to thank you so much. To me, the most important thing that you said of everything today was reach out to our office and we'll help you figure out what you're qualified for.
That's what we're here for. That's what we're here for. And we look forward to serving you.